Fame Award has gone to Teboho Mahlatsi. Now, the Shaka Ilembe and Yizo Yizo director and Bomb Shelter Film Productions executive producer passed away earlier this year due to cancer. Let's find out from the godfather of the South African film and television industry, Angus Gibson, what this accolade actually means for Bomb Productions. Thank you so much for joining me this morning, Angus. Of course, Teboho, very close to your heart. And what does this actually mean, not just for him, for his family, for his friends, but for you as well?
Well, I mean, my working relationship with Teboho is one of 30 years. So we have been through an enormous amount together. And there was a point at which I took over long form in our company, and he essentially concentrated on commercials. So the Loeries were kind of not a terrain that I knew. I'd never been to the Loeries. And so after the terrible passing of Teboho, very untimely passing of Teboho, I was invited, to go and receive this honor for him. And only then did I understand quite how important it was and to what extent they were honoring him. Because there are extraordinarily few, I think you can count on less than two hands the people that have been honored over the years. And of course, Teboho was a pioneer, in every sense of the word. With me, he kind of pioneered and led the process of transforming kind of urban television with Yizo Yizo. And then when he decided to shift into doing commercials, which he was so, he was a perfect commercials director, no doubt about it. And being a black commercials director in that moment was tough. And he very bravely fought off rejection after rejection and persevered. It was kind of a situation where he would get the best boards and he would be up against the real, the great people in the industry. And again, they would say, "We loved what you did. You were almost with us, but we've decided to go that way." And it took a long time to get his foot in the door. And once he got his foot in the door, he proved just what a great talent he was. And you can see just from if you look across his works, there are so many well-loved adverts there. And he opened up the space for black creators. So I'm so happy that has been recognized. Because it was a tough road that he went down.
A tough road indeed, and I can't imagine, being a black creative, in that day and age, and trying to, put your footmark here and saying, this is what I can do, this is who I am, and this is what I think, should be done, and then you're being shot down. Yizo Yizo, what a huge part of our South African culture, and this is the guy that was part of it, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How important was that, and what was his opinion about Yizo Yizo, and why was it so important for South Africa to have a show like that?
Well, we had met some time back at a collective called Free Filmmakers, and I went abroad I was working on an autobiographical documentary on Mandela, and I was in New York for 2 years. And I came back to South Africa, and Teboho and I, who had connected before, said, let's do stuff together. So we started writing a project, and one day Teboho turned to me and he said, "You know what there hasn't been in South Africa? There's this big hole, and it's for kind of," he described it then as B kind of movie television where, or features where people would speak like people speak.
Yeah.
Because, you don't understand it now, but back then, there were all these kind of silos in terms of black television. there would be Zulu television and Tswana television and Sepedi television, and people would be taught how to speak this perfect kind of Zulu or Sepedi or whatever, which is did not reflect the world of the urban mix of the townships. And so we set out to rectify that and to make a television that represented urban South Africa. And I think it was such a relief for the audience, or certainly the black urban South African audience, to suddenly see themselves represented in a way that they could recognize. It felt like it changed things. And from then, for the longest time then, it felt like everything on television was about an urban culture. In fact, it sort of went on so long that eventually I thought, we better try and celebrate the rural culture, and that was when we suggested doing Isibaya, which was essentially about a rural and an urban world, but essentially a rural world.
Angus, of course, it is about Teboho, the main focus this morning, and that's why you're here. But we're also here to celebrate you. How do you feel about your accolades and the work that you've done now?
I feel very flattered that, people recognize the work that I've done. And I have to say, I have never been an auteur, a person that does things alone. I'm a collaborator and I work with people. And so all of my work really is about a collective of people doing and loving doing work together. So I take those accolades for those people around me. And I have many, Teboho is a 30-year relationship, but there are many people that work around me that we have been as a collective for 20, 15, 10, 12 years. So I accept the honor for everybody.
Okay. Shaka Ilembe, what a great show, I must say. Did you expect it to blow up this much as it has?
Well, my expectation was that it would be like Yizo Yizo, and that half the population would hate it and half the population would love it, which was fine. I would have been happy with that. But I think we have all been completely astounded at the extent to which people have embraced it. When we were asked to do a project on King Shaka, my immediate expectation was people hold him up so, and they feel so passionately about the character. I thought, we're digging a hole for ourselves.
Exactly, yeah.
There's no ways we're going to please people.
Exactly, yeah. But you did it.
Well,
or do you think you did?
I hope so. I mean, I'm very grateful for the warm reception.
Yeah. And taking on a story like that, I mean, being a storyteller, and also like it's Shaka. It's not just you're not just taking on a story. You're not just creating something out of thin air. You are actually taking history, and South Africans know their history. The Zulu culture as well. They are very, very strict when it comes to the traditions and everything. And you somehow found a way. Obviously, this was a collaborative effort. It's not just a one-man project. It takes a lot of work and a lot of people to make this, such a huge success.
So it's a project that's been 6 years in gestation, and many of those years were spent in research. So we drew a circle around ourselves of real experts in the field, I suppose. Not necessarily filmmakers, but people that have a deep love and experience of Zulu culture. And people with different opinions. And of course, what we immediately, as soon as you do research into this kind of history, you find that there are multiple versions of the same history. And so what we did was we kind of thought, well, what we are going to understand is what all those versions are. so that we can make informed decisions about the narratives that we tell. And of course, there are holes in the history, especially when you go back to the 18th century. And in those holes, it gave us space to create fictional narrative that kind of spoke to the known narrative.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. The Godfather, is it fine if we call you that? A title you will just yet again take it upon yourself. And thank you so much for your time again. The Godfather of South African television, that is Angus Gibson. And it's such a pleasure always to have you here, and also congratulations yet again, not just for you but also for Teboho on the amazing work that you and him that you've done, and the contribution that you've also delivered to the South African entertainment industry. So thank you so much for your time this morning. That is Angus Gibson, the Bomb Shelter Film Production, from Bomb Shelter Film Productions. And of course, we are celebrating our very own talent here this morning, the Loeries Awards, of course, honoring not just Angus, but also the one, the only Teboho Mahlatsi.